Hello and welcome to a deeper dive with Dara Cam. We're going to take a deep dive into the Republican slaughter of Democrats in Florida on November 8th. There might not have been a red wave around the country, but there was a red tsunami in the Sunshine State. I'll be joined by City and State Florida Editor-in-Chief Jim Rosica for our monthly conversation. Stick with us, you don't want to miss it.
DeSantis really is now, he is the American Caesar. He will go into, for instance, the 2023 legislative session with just, a mind-boggling amount of power.
You're listening to A Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by City and State Florida.
Welcome to another episode of A Deeper Dive with me, Dara Cam. Today, our special guest is Editor-in-Chief of City and State Florida, Jim Rosica. See, I got it that time. I didn't even stumble over Editor-in-Chief. I didn't even have to think about it now.
That's awesome. I will, of course, add my usual, and here I am from across the great rotunda, crossing the great foyer from my hovel on the other side of a long way from the Terracotta Room.
He is just jealous because it is the cushest spot in the house here. Literally, we are in a house.
I see them, but I can't hear them doing the high tea service in the Terracotta Room.
Okay,
I'm not
but
invited.
You can hear this.
I do indeed. That's the house band. We have a house band now. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Okay, so we are here to break down what happened on Tuesday night, November 8th. This will be coming out to you fans, listeners, I should say. It will be coming out to you a couple days after we record it now. We are recording it, I will confess, the day after the election. So some things may still be up in the air a little bit. Probably not here in Florida, but we're going to be talking about what happened in Florida. We've heard it was I heard Mark Caputo. I saw a tweet where he made a reference to an abattoir in Florida. It's someone else called it a red wedding, a bloodbath, suffice to say that the Republicans are doing the happy dance times 10,000 in Florida right now.
Indeed. And, Dara, as you know, I'm just a mook from New Jersey. I've only been in Florida for a scant few years. You, of course, have been here for a lot longer. And really, I'm interested. I'm confused. I'm piqued. What really happened here yesterday? Why was it?
Well, the Democrats got their asses handed to them.
Well, that, but how did we work up to
right.
that?
How did we get here?
How did it get so bad? How did it get so lopsided, so to speak?
Well, I think there's a combination of factors at play here, and you know this as well as I do. I think Ron DeSantis is key among those elements, and his sort of almost like the idolatry of Ron DeSantis among regular Floridians plus Floridians who moved here. I think a very key component of Republicans gaining so much traction in 2022 in Florida is DeSantis's stance on vaccinations, on keeping Florida open, keeping Florida quote unquote free. That really resonates with a lot of people that I'm speaking to when I'm, getting gas or I'm at the grocery store or the coffee shop. That's the kind of those are the things that they talk about when they say how much they love Ron DeSantis.
They feel like he was on their side.
Exactly. And I think
And I think he says that a lot in his public remarks about how he, words to the effect of "I took the arrows for you." I'm not backing down, but I took
That's right.
the arrows for you.
That's right. He did, and he was castigated by the left for some of his positions, which I think it's safe to say now that a lot of what Florida had relatively low, comparatively low number of deaths and cases of COVID. So I think that his position is that he was right and they were wrong. And a lot of people believe that. He won by a margin that we haven't seen since. I was looking at a story by News Service of Florida executive editor Jim Saunders.
Yeah, I had to think about
I
that.
had to think about
the title's a little bit different on this side of the building.
I mean, can't you guys just do it? Can't we all be in the same?
No, we got to be different.
So anyway, since Bob Graham was seeking re-election.
That's going back.
No, he won re-election. No, I guess re-election by more than 29 percentage points in 1982. So 1982, many of these listeners were not even born then. So quite the while that Florida has been in the past several elections until 2020, expected to have razor thin margins. We did in 2018. We certainly did not last night. I think another contributing factor to that is Democrats have been the Democratic Party, the Florida Democratic Party, in my view, has been in disarray for the past 20 years.
And so,
what says you?
Yes.
Okay.
But so really, I mean, I'm going to work this into a story soon today. DeSantis really is now he is the American Caesar. He will go into, for instance, the 2023 legislative session with just a mind-boggling amount of power, even though he is going to have a legislature that has supermajorities in both the House and the Senate with the GOP. That presents its own problems because even under a supermajority situation, it's hard to herd the cats sometimes.
It used to be, Jim, and you've been here long enough to know that the Senate has changed. The Senate, the saucer that cools the hot tea or whatever. The Senate used to be a moderating force when Republicans dominated both chambers. The Senate had a number of moderate Republicans who could join with Democrats to stop some of the, for example, an abortion bill that, so some there were coalitions that were made across party lines back in the day. That situation no longer exists.
And that's in large part due to so many House members came over and joined the Senate.
That's right.
I can think of two who are, pretty hard right folks, Kelly Stargell and Dennis Baxley, just to name two, for example.
That's right. And 9 House members came over, 7 Republican House members came over to the Senate on Tuesday.
Yeah, okay.
I want to say last night on Tuesday. So I think that's another contributing factor. And I think also national Democrats have thrown in the towel on Florida. It was interesting. I don't know if you saw Senate Minority Leader Lauren Book issued a statement on Wednesday following the election, basically blaming the party leaders. It seemed to me she blamed a lack of infrastructure on the Senate. Democrats, just to back up, Democrats lost 4 seats in the Senate. So they are now it is now a 28-12 split
What is the
in the Senate.
what is it? The 2/3?
2/3. The supermajority is 27.
So they have 28.
They have 28. Yes.
That's mind-boggling.
Yes, it is. And so she blamed the Senate. So there were 3 Senate races that really were considered to be toss-ups. The Republicans won all of those.
Yes, including one that I got an angry supporter of one of the incumbents that lost, blaming me for the loss, of course.
Yes, that would be Loran
That would be
Osley.
Loran Osley.
Tell everybody how you screwed the pooch for
So
Loran
how I
Osley.
screwed the pooch for Loran. So in 2020, Loran Osley was running for state senate against a Republican by the name of Marva Preston, and that's when I was the managing editor of the Tallahassee Democrat, and we were doing in the age of COVID. In the high age of COVID, we were doing virtual campaign forums. So we did a virtual campaign forum with Democrat Loran Osley and Republican Marva Preston. And toward the end of that campaign forum, which of course was broadcast on the internet, was recorded, as kind of part of a lightning round. I asked the 2 candidates, I started with Loran Osley, is there anybody you won't take campaign contributions from? And she said no. And that took me aback. And if you look back at the recording, I kind of shake my head a little bit. And then I go, you'll take money from anybody? And she says yes. So of course,
gosh.
the Republicans take this clip.
Cringe.
They make a commercial in 2020. They then use the same clip and make another commercial for this election. Same clip, and then they kind of riff off of the whole, Loran will take money from anybody. They riffed off of that in other ads, in another commercial and in a mailer. And Loran, who had been calling her opponent, now State Senator Corey Simon, an extremist, they started using that, throwing that label back at her, and so she collapsed Tuesday night, was overcome by Corey Simon in a much desired, the Senate Republicans wanted that seat so bad for so long.
Yeah, she was clobbered. That's how I put it in my story.
Fair enough.
She was clobbered
Fair
by
enough.
Corey Simon, or I should say Corey Simon clobbered
her, yes.
And there you have it, kids. That's a little behind the curtains peek into what goes on, the symbiotic relationship between the media and politics that you might not know about just by reading our stories online.
It was an unwitting contribution on my part to the political process.
Yeah, that race was they fiercely fought. The Republicans had a boatload of money to spend.
So many mailers.
We have a stack here in the office that is just, we could have, Guy Fawkes night or however.
It's epic. Yeah. A hobbit could sit on it and just eat at a table. That's how tall the stack of mailers is.
Yeah. So anyway, they lost that seat. They lost the Janet Cruz seat, which was another seat. It's the part of the problem, I think, also when you ask what happened, why Florida so red, is the redistricting. So these Senate districts were tweaked enough to help Republican candidates in Loran Osley's seat, or the district that had been held by Democrats forever, ran out into some more rural counties in the surrounding area outside of Tallahassee. And while Loran Osley handily won in Leon County, that wasn't enough to carry her over the finish line. And in Hillsborough County, where Janet Cruz was running for re-election, she's a former House minority leader. Her district, I believe, was tweaked enough so that she was defeated. Again, it wasn't even close. I mean, none of these races were even close.
Well, and remember though, in the case of Janet Cruz beat a Republican, Dana Young,
That's
to
right.
take office. And
Very
now,
narrowly. It was a narrow
it was a
win
narrow
for her.
win, and now Janet Cruz, the Democrat, has been again beaten by another Republican.
So
Jay
maybe
Collins.
it wasn't so much redistricting in that district that had the effect as it was. That was a swing, truly a swing district, but she lost. I mean, he had a considerable margin.
But you can say, as long as we're talking about redistricting,
Yeah.
not to switch too wildly here, but beyond legislative redistricting,
Yes.
there was also congressional redistricting, and there was congressional redistricting that was done basically at the behest of Governor Ron DeSantis, who turned his. I mean, he basically drew. And it was some were taken aback because it was the first time in a long time that a governor had basically presented here's my map for congressional redistricting.
Yeah.
And then the legislature didn't take his map.
That's right.
They took their own map, which he then vetoed, called them back into special session, and they kind of went into special session with their tails between their legs because they adopted the DeSantis map. And so the DeSantis map, which favors Republicans in the U.S. House, I believe it's +4.
That's right.
Now, and we're now seeing that.
Yeah.
And so again, and if you, I have to be careful here as usual, but if one was drawing up a winners and losers list, it is not beyond the ken of belief that, perhaps the outgoing House Speaker and outgoing Senate President, had they gotten their way, we would have a new congressional map in place that was not as favorable to Republicans as the one that we have now that was drawn by DeSantis.
Okay, well, I wanna put a pin in that and come back to that in a moment in terms of winners and losers and who did what to whom. But I don't think you can overstate the significance of what DeSantis is maneuvering there with the congressional maps amounted to. That was never had been done, I don't think, in modern history at least. I've covered several redistricting, the once a decade redistricting process. I've covered 3 of them. And I know that from back before that, they had not, a governor sort of stayed in his lane. Ron DeSantis does not stay in his lane, and he doesn't have any intention of doing so. He basically told them, this is what I want. If you don't give it to me, you can kiss your budget items goodbye. Right. And they caved. Now, whether the outgoing House Speaker and Senate President are Republicans, I doubt that they're unhappy that there are 4 more Republicans in Florida's congressional delegation than there would have been under the map, than there may have been under the map that they had floated themselves. And they have a bloody rock star for governor now. I mean, he is, you call him America's Caesar. I just think of him as some sort of, and I don't want to wax too, I don't want to be over dramatic, melodramatic, although I do enjoy being melodramatic at times, but I don't want to be melodramatic here. But I mean, he is probably one of the most powerful political figures in the country right now. Yay or nay?
Absolutely yay. And if you listen closely to his victory speech in Tampa, I believe that's where he was.
Yes,
Tampa.
he was in Tampa. We were there.
You in the middle of the speech, you heard people in the front rows yelling, 2 more years.
2 more
2
years.
more years.
2 more years.
So I think we're now in a mode, we're now in a position where we pretty much know where we're heading.
Yeah. We'll be right back with City and State Florida Editor-in-Chief Jim Rosica.
Here at Deeper Dive, we want to hear from you, the listeners. We invite you to send your questions, comments, and feedback to our mailbag. You can reach us at deeperdive@cityandstatefl.com. That's deeperdive@cityandstatefl.com. Get your 2 cents in by sending us an email.
Welcome back to A Deeper Dive with Dara. Yeah, because there had been a lot of talk about Governor DeSantis running for president, and he has played coy with that and has said, he in fact, one of the stunning moments of his debate with Charlie Crist, that's the guy, kids, who ran and lost against Governor DeSantis on Tuesday night, in case you didn't know. Was when Charlie asked DeSantis whether he was going to run for president in 2 years, and DeSantis just stood on the stage and said nothing, went mum, which was just kind of a bizarre moment. So I think, and not just Dara Cam, but pundits all over the country believe that the mandate that DeSantis got with a 20 percentage point victory over Charlie Crist will certainly escalate him in the presidential race in 2024. And you and I kind of argued about this the other day. Donald Trump or not, I don't think DeSantis is afraid of taking on Donald Trump.
Well, maybe not now.
Okay. Well,
maybe
granted,
not
this
now.
Conversation, our argument was before the results
trickled in
Tuesday
yes,
night.
That is sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be very interesting. Awkward, even, to see how that plays out. As if we are expecting, Mr. Trump is going to make an announcement next week. Which, we know he is going to make some sort of announcement next week, which we expect is going to be his announcement that he is going to run for president in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, the problem you have there is you've got, Donald Trump, who endorsed, Ron DeSantis was a congressman who hardly anybody had heard of.
Very little known congressman.
And Donald Trump endorsed him, and Ron DeSantis defeated in a primary the establishment candidate.
Heir apparent.
That's right.
Adam Putnam.
I remember Adam Putnam. Yes. Nobody probably knows who Adam Putnam is now. But
I looked him up. He was actually the commissioner of agriculture at one point.
Yeah, I knew him.
Oh, I did not remember that.
You didn't?
No, I did. Of course I did.
Oh.
Dara. It's a
Wait
gag.
a minute. Let's see.
It's a gag.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
So Donald Trump endorsed Governor DeSantis, or then candidate DeSantis.
Right.
DeSantis wins in the primary election and goes on to defeat Andrew Gillum, which was an upset. Nobody knew who was going to win in that race. It was a very close race.
Fairly put. Nothing
like Tuesday's massacre of Charlie Crist. So Donald Trump has is believed to believe that he made Ron DeSantis, and so that he should be beholden to him. And I think that we'll see how that plays out. I'm not sure. I just don't see DeSantis with the stature that Tuesday night gave him, the elevation of that 20 percentage point victory, the congressional map turning out the way that he had, the way he orchestrated it, I just don't see that he would be afraid to take on Trump.
Was Donald Trump upstaged, do you think, by that margin of victory?
I do. Do you?
I do. I'm just seeing if you agree with me.
I usually agree with
And
you.
then, but then the question is, so what does that mean for the mercurial Donald? Like, what is he going to pull out next? I mean, we've already heard the sanctimonious,
I know.
which I don't think landed very hard.
It
I think part of it was a matter of delivery. I mean, he didn't really deliver it hard enough as a kind of like a punchline. He didn't land it hard enough. But he delivered
it's
the line.
not really
it's
all
out
that
there.
disparaging, though.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
guess,
mean? It's
yeah.
not like Whittle, whatever who he was calling
Little Mario.
Right. I knew it was Rubio.
Yes.
Marco, not Mario.
Well, I thought he called him Mario first. And
Oh,
then
that's
called
right.
him Marco.
You're right. He did. So,
I may be misremembering that, but in any event, yes, we're trying to bury the memory of little Marco now because we're all friends. Donald has said, we didn't get along at first, but now, me and Marco are good friends,
and Marco Rubio also handily
dispensed with Chief Demings.
Chief Demings, who I wrote in my story that many Democrats in Florida and around the country believed she was the best shot at a statewide win in Florida on November 8th, and she fell short.
And how much did she fall short? Was that a 15-point margin?
It was.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you see, it's what, yeah.
So before we move on, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our huge fans, Sue Buckner in New Mexico. Thank you so much for listening. And I want to tell Jim that Sue thinks you have a fantastic radio voice.
I had no idea.
Well,
I'll have to look up who this person is.
you will have to do
I'll
that.
have to do some Googling.
You'll have to do a little genealogy.
I will. I will not continue the charade. It's this Sue Buckner is my mother-in-law in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Rio Rancho, also known as the City of Vision.
Well, good, but she doesn't just listen when you and I are on together. I heard she listens all the time.
She apparently listens, as far as I know, to every episode as it comes out.
Well, good. I hope she enjoys this one. So, 2022 elections in Florida. Can we please now, at least, national media will stop questioning whether Florida is a red state or whether it's still a swing state,
or a purple state,
right?
or a swing
Can
state.
we get that out of
I
the
think we're done.
national
we're done
lexicon?
That's done. That's done. We just need to move into the red state box or column and there we are.
So the original question was why, what's changed in Florida? Why the Republican butcher shop on November 8th in Florida?
There we go, coming full circle. I
Yeah,
give you
back to
credit.
abattoir.
Back to the
Yeah,
abattoir.
yeah.
I'm not going to bring back that lifesaver though. I'm going to leave that in the past.
So I think that one of the other reasons for that is Floridians have become more Republican. Not only have you had more people move in from other states during COVID, they wanted to be in Freedom, Florida, or the free state of Florida, whatever. And we have always had a lot of migration. I mean, people are constantly moving here. That's why our population keeps growing and growing. That's why we're now the third largest state in the country and not the fourth largest state in the country.
Which we were.
We were for many, many years. But I also think that Republicans are more Republican than they used to be in Florida.
Ooh, yes. Good one.
There
are more Floridians who are Republicans, and of those Republicans are even more Republican.
That's my theory.
Yes, okay. And I mean, aside from the fact that I have heard more Republicans are now registered to vote in Florida than Democrats. For the longest time, Democrats, but just by the number, just by the voter registration numbers, there were more Democrats registered to vote than Republicans. And now, at some point in the last year, that has flipped. There are more Republicans registered to vote than Democrats.
Yeah, the Democrats are losing more voters than the Republicans are enlisting. And we still have a lot of NPAs in Florida.
No party affiliated.
That's right.
Voters.
And I think I think part of that is a function of a lot of people moving here from other states, perhaps not realizing that they cannot vote in Florida's closed primaries unless they, belong to a party. But maybe they just don't give a shit about that. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just not something that resonates among voters.
We'll bleep that out, folks. I'll apologize. Apologize to some of my listeners. I apologize to Sue Buckner in advance.
I'm sorry. We'll get Ryan.
We're sorry, Sue.
We'll get Ryan to bleep that out, okay?
We'll get Ryan to bleep that out. There we go. We'll get Ryan to bleep that out, too.
Okay, maybe they just aren't as concerned about that as they are about voting in general elections. But so I think that it's a combination of those things: Republicans being more Republican, a figurehead of a leader in Governor DeSantis, who is like Mighty Mouse. I don't know. Mighty Mouse is he's like, what was that movie with that Iron Man? Is that a movie?
Iron Man was a movie.
Was that the one where the guy turns, it's like a transformer kind of a thing?
You are totally mixing metaphors right now and brands. But yes.
It was Robert Downey.
Something like that. Yes. Robert Downey Jr. played Iron Man.
Okay, that's who I'm thinking of.
He transformed into his Iron Man suit.
Okay, I said transformer.
And fought evil.
Okay, so I'm seeing, when I'm thinking of Ron DeSantis as I was home.
He's not a transformer, by the way.
No, I know that a transformer is a different thing. But after we were done on election night, I was thinking of Ron DeSantis, and the image that I got in my mind was an Iron Man. Was that Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., clad in that sort of indestructible metal material.
Absolutely correct.
I mean, I'm not saying this to sound gushy. I'm just saying that he's got this incredible amount of power, and what's he going to do with it over the next 2 years, or what's he going to do with it over the next legislative session? He has made a bunch of appointments to courts, to appellate courts. The courts in Florida are very much dominated by Republican appointees now, all of the appellate courts at least. So the Republicans have a lock on the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. What do Democrats do?
What can they do? I don't know. I don't know that they can do anything. I don't know that they have the will. I don't know that they have the strategy. I don't know that they have the numbers. I don't know what the Florida Democratic Party does to save itself, to reinvent itself. I am at a loss. And I think they are too, because if they had figured it out, they would have done it by now, or they would have at least tried in a very kind of public way to go about it. And I think that there's just a total lack of planning, of strategy there, or else they would have pulled it off already.
I think one of the things, and Republicans have always been good at framing the narrative, and we've talked about this before, and Democrats leaving, especially in Florida, on their back feet, always reacting. And, this whole, the socialist trope, the extremist trope, the talk about they want to gender mutilate your kids.
Florida is where woke goes to die.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where we're gonna leave it, folks. Florida is where woke goes to die, and Tuesday night in Florida proved it.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, City and State.
What's your name again?
City and State.
I'm going to start
Florida.
wearing a little name tag
City and
in the
State.
Terracotta Room.
City and State, Florida executive editor, Jim Rosica. It was great to be here with you, and we will be back, as we always are, once a month. Thanks for joining me again today, Jim.
It's going to be like a Kiwanis meeting. I'm going to have like a little name tag in a box. As soon as I come in, I'll just put the name tag on so you don't get confused. The Terracotta Kiwanis chapter. We're going to form it right now.
We're going to have a super secret special club.
Exactly.
For the Deeper Divas.
For the Deeper Divas. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm a deeper maven.
All right, Jim Rosica, thanks for joining in this week, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Dara Cam. We will see you when we see you.
A Deeper Dive with Dara is a podcast by City and State, Florida, hosted by Dara Cam, produced by Ryan Daly, and music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC, and performed by Ryan Daly and Danny Reyes.